Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are going on a journey that you probably take every single week, but I guarantee you are about to see it in a completely different light.
Yeah, we are decoding the hidden psychology and really the surprising history of the everyday grocery run.
Right, and some incredibly practical hacks too. Our mission today is to figure out why this mundane chore is actually a highly engineered experience.
And we are pulling from a really wild stack of sources today.
We really are. We've got a historical breakdown of how supermarkets were even invented. We have this hilariously relatable comedic script about a couple's chaotic shopping trip.
We are also looking at a blind taste test of supermarket sourdough breads.
Plus some actual farming tips on checking eggs, a definitive guide to grocery store rotisserie chickens, the cultural phenomenon of Japanese snack boxes, and believe it or not, a surprisingly profound spiritual essay on a $4.99 rotisserie chicken.
It is quite the mix.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this, because
Yeah.
I know you out there listening have wondered this. Why do you walk into a store for three things and walk out with a cart full of stuff you absolutely did not intend to buy?
Or why remembering to bring those reusable bags from the trunk of your car into the store feels like it's just biologically impossible.
Yes, why is that so hard?
It feels impossible because you are fighting against a system that has been perfected over a century. The modern grocery store is not just a building where food is kept.
Right.
It's a meticulously engineered environment. It is the product of decades of behavioral science and strategic design. All of it operating just under the surface to influence exactly how you navigate the space.
And ultimately how you spend your money.
Exactly.
And to really understand how we got to this hyper-engineered state, we have to rewind. Because what shopping looked like before the 1930s was a completely different universe.
Oh, totally different.
Imagine walking into your local grocer back then. These stores were tiny and honestly pretty austere.
You didn't just walk in and grab a shopping cart and toss in a box of cereal.
Right, you walked up to a wooden counter and you handed a clerk a handwritten list. And that clerk would then physically walk around the back room and fetch every single item.
From shelves you couldn't even reach.
Yeah. Every scoop of flour had to be individually weighed out and wrapped in paper. And here's the part that just blows my mind. Prices were usually not posted anywhere.
No, you had to haggle for your groceries.
Which is wild.
And the clerks might charge you a completely different price for a bag of sugar based on how you were dressed that day, or what they just assumed your family could afford to pay.
I mean, I cannot even imagine trying to negotiate the price of my morning coffee beans based on my outfit.
It was incredibly labor-intensive,
Oh.
totally subjective, and wildly inefficient. Early retail pioneers knew there had to be a better way.
Like Vincent Astor.
Right. In 1915, Vincent Astor took a massive chunk of his fortune and built the Astor Market in Manhattan.
It was this grand open-air mini mall concept, right?
It was, but it totally failed by 1917.
Yeah.
Because people just weren't used to traveling long distances for food. They wanted their neighborhood clerk.
So the behavior hadn't caught up to the idea yet.
Exactly. Then in 1916, a man named Clarence Saunders invented the self-service grocery store with his Piggly Wiggly chain.
He actually held the patents for the self-service store layout.
He did. The whole idea of customers picking their own items. But even with that innovation, groceries were still quite expensive. The margins were really tight.
Which brings us to 1930. In Queens, New York, a man named Michael J. Cullen opened a store inside an abandoned garage,
And he called it Ping Cullen.
King Cullen,
Wow.
which is widely considered the very first true supermarket as we understand it today. His entire philosophy was brutally simple: pile it high and sell it cheap.
He literally called himself the world's greatest price wrecker.
I love that. He gave people physical baskets to carry. He slapped the prices clearly on every single item so the era of haggling was dead. And he offered massive discounts by selling in unprecedented high volumes.
And that King Cullen model sent absolute shockwaves through the corporate grocery world. At the time, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company,
Which we know as A&P.
right, A&P, they were the dominant grocery chain. And they heavily resisted this self-service bare bones model. They liked their smaller clerk-run stores.
But then the Great Depression hit.
And overnight, American consumers became incredibly price-sensitive. A&P was forced to adapt or die.
So they ended up closing thousands of their traditional corner stores and opening these massive warehouse-style supermarkets.
Because the economics were undeniable.
Right.
In a traditional store, wages and overhead consumed about 18% of sales. In the new supermarkets, that overhead dropped to under 12%.
But there's a massive human cost to that efficiency, right?
A huge one. Overnight, those chatty neighborhood clerks disappeared.
And people who actually knew your family.
Gone. Suddenly, you just had armies of workers doing highly specialized repetitive tasks. Shelf stockers hidden in the aisles, cashiers stationed at the front. The social aspect of shopping was entirely replaced by industrial efficiency.
And the efficiency of this new system was so staggering that by the 1950s, the American supermarket was literally being weaponized as propaganda.
This is such a fascinating piece of history.
It's one of the craziest things I learned from the sources. During the Cold War, the U.S. government used fully stocked operational supermarkets to show off the superiority of capitalism to the rest of the world.
It was a brilliant, albeit manipulative, psychological tactic. In 1956, the government built the American Way exhibit in Rome.
And then even more boldly, in 1957, they built Supermarket USA at a trade fair in Yugoslavia.
Right, in a socialist-leaning region.
And people lost their minds. Attendees were walking into this exhibit and they were absolutely stunned by what was described as mountains of food.
Imagine living with rationing and limited options.
And suddenly you walk into a brightly lit room filled with perfectly prepackaged meats and frozen TV dinners and towers of brightly colored cereal boxes.
It wasn't just about the food. It was a deliberate showcase of overwhelming abundance.
But we have to remember that today that abundance is highly curated.
Very curated. If we step into the layout psychology of the modern store, nothing you see is accidental. Most stores are designed with a counterclockwise circulation path,
You usually enter on the right side of the building.
which retail research suggests encourages consumers to browse longer and spend more. And notice how the absolute essentials, your milk, your eggs, your bread, were almost always anchored at the very back of the store.
Oh, it's a total trap. They force you to walk past thousands of highly profitable, tempting items just to get your basic staples.
Precisely. Even the vertical placement on the shelves is an exact science. Cheap, generic brands are banished to the bottom shelves where you have to stoop to get them,
And the sugary cereals and snacks marketed to kids.
placed exactly at mid-thigh height, right at a toddler's eye level so they can grab it and toss it in the cart.
While the most profitable brand name items are placed perfectly at adult eye level,
Right.
which perfectly sets up this relatable scenario I want to talk about. There's this comedic script floating around in our sources about two characters. Let's call them Leo and Maya. They are sitting in their car, hyping themselves up to execute a highly disciplined 10-minute grocery run. They need three things: bread, eggs, and hot sauce. That is it.
A classic mission.
Maya is locked in. But Leo walks through those sliding doors, and he immediately gets completely derailed in the international aisle by a massive mountain of limited edition Japanese strawberry biscuits.
He just completely forgets the hot sauce.
Just stands there mesmerized.
What's fascinating about Leo's distraction is that it highlights a massive shift in our behavior as shoppers. The international aisle used to be just a dusty shelf of a few imported cooking sauces.
Yeah, it was always an afterthought.
But today, it's a destination for specialized global products. Because the rest of the supermarket is so sterile, and industrialized consumers today are actively craving authentic, curated experiences.
Yes, and we see this craving perfectly illustrated by the explosion of international subscription services like the Sakurako snack box.
Right, it's not just a box of candy you rip open while watching TV.
It is a full-blown cultural immersion. You open this box, and it includes a 24-page culture guide. The snacks aren't made in some mega factory. They are made by local family-owned Japanese businesses,
They even include traditional home goods.
like ceramics or those beautiful furoshiki wrapping cloths. And they include a specific tea pairing, like the Makinohara Hojicha, which is this low-caffeine roasted green tea sourced straight from Japan's largest tea-producing region.
That level of detail, that story of origin, is the exact opposite of the faceless, pile it high and sell it cheap supermarket model. It feels human.
And that authenticity is exactly what consumers like our fictional Leo are desperately being drawn to when they wander away from their shopping list.
Exactly.
Okay, so Leo finally tears himself away from the Japanese biscuits. He and Maya get their three items. They get to the checkout register, and they suffer a failure that I think every single person listening to this has experienced.
The bags.
The cashier asks if they need bags, and Leo realizes their nice, sturdy, reusable grocery bags are currently sitting in the trunk of their car.
It happens to everyone.
It happens to me constantly. Why is it so hard to just remember the bags?
What's fascinating here is it actually comes down to neuroscience, specifically neuroplasticity.
Really?
Yeah, think of your brain's habits like walking through a forest. If you walk the same path every day, it becomes a clear, easy trail. When you are rushing to the store, mentally reviewing your list and running on automatic pilot, your brain takes that well-worn trail.
You grab your keys, you lock the car, you walk inside.
You literally cannot form the new neural connections, the new trail required to remember the bags without some kind of deliberate disruptive intervention.
Okay, so how do we pave a new highway in our brains? Because I'm so tired of buying 10-cent paper bags.
There is a very specific three-step routine to fix this.
Step 1. You need to own a minimum of 5 to 6 reusable bags per vehicle. 2 or 3 is simply not enough for an average trip, and you'll end up leaving them in the house.
That's step 1.
Step 2. You have to use a low-tech visual cue. Put a bright sticker on your driver's side window or hang a tag on your rear view mirror. You need a physical trigger to interrupt that automatic brain loop before you step out of the car.
And step 3 is the most important one.
Yes, and I cannot emphasize this enough. This is the absolute critical moment. When you get home and unload your groceries in the kitchen, you must stop immediately and put the empty bags back in the car.
That immediacy is the key. Do not put away the milk. Do not answer a text message. Do not check the mail.
If you do literally any other task first, you are virtually guaranteed to leave those bags draped over a kitchen chair for the next week.
Because that immediate action is what creates the new neural pathway. You are physically linking the completion of the grocery trip directly to the repositioning of the bags. It closes the loop.
Okay, so you've hacked your brain, you remembered your bags, you are finally inside the store. Let's walk over to the bakery section to get the first staple on Leo and Maya's list. Bread.
That smell of fresh baking bread is a deliberate trap to make you hungry, by the way.
Oh, I fall for it every time. But if you're going to buy bread, we really need to talk about the great sourdough deception.
The surfo.
Yes, Sky News recently did this blind taste test with 11 different sliced supermarket sourdough loaves. And the results completely upend what you think you're buying.
They really do. And it requires us to understand the difference between authentic sourdough and what critics call sour faux.
Right.
Traditional sourdough is an incredibly simple, ancient recipe. It is just flour, water, salt, and a natural starter. That starter is a live, bubbling mixture of fermented flour and water, and that's what gives the bread its distinct, complex, tangy taste and chewy texture.
But commercial supermarkets don't have the time for slow fermentation.
No, they want to mimic this flavor quickly and cheaply. So they bake a regular loaf of bread, but pump it full of preservatives like propionic acid. And they mask it on the ingredient list under sneaky phrases like fermented flour.
And the taste testers could absolutely tell the difference between the real deal and the fake stuff.
The results were pretty stark.
The top spot in the test went to Burtonette Bakery, which costs about £2.25 and scored an 8 out of 10. Testers said it had a fantastic, genuine sourness and acted closest to a freshly baked artisanal loaf.
And the runner-up was Asda Exceptional, scoring a 7.3.
But the big, famous commercial brands, they completely flopped. Jason's and Hovis both scored a dismal 3 out of 10.
The testers were ruthless on those.
They described these loaves as stodgy, totally lacking in any real sourness and having an almost sickly artificial taste. So read your labels. Look for a real starter, not just yeast and preservatives.
Excellent advice.
Now, moving from the bakery, let's weave our way back to the dairy aisle. We need eggs.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Think about how you buy eggs. You open the carton, you wiggle them around a little bit to make sure none are stuck to the bottom. And if they look fine, you toss them in the cart right.
Usually, yeah.
Well, the folks at Cackle Hatchery shared a brilliant trick for finding invisible cracks that you absolutely cannot see with the naked eye.
It's called the sound test. You gently take 2 eggs out of the carton and tap them together near your ear.
Which, by the way, means you were going to be that weird person in the dairy aisle holding eggs up to your ear like they are seashells trying to hear the ocean.
You might get a few strange looks, but it works. If you tap them and hear a clear, solid clicking sound, the shells are structurally sound.
But if you tap them and hear a distinct, dull, hollow sound,
that indicates an invisible hairline crack in the shell of one of those eggs. And this isn't just about trying to get perfect-looking eggs. This raises a very important question to food safety.
Because a cracked egg means the protective internal membrane has been compromised.
Right. That significantly increases the risk of bacterial contamination, like salmonella getting inside the egg. If you do happen to miss a crack and bring a hollow-sounding egg home, the hatchery strongly advises that you must cook that egg very slowly to be safe.
No runny yolks for that one.
Definitely not.
Good to know. Okay, we've got our true sourdough. We've got our solid-sounding ocean-free eggs. Finally, you hit the deli section. Because we have to talk about the undisputed king of the supermarket, the rotisserie chicken.
Going back to our friend Leo, he is absolutely mesmerized by the glowing, glistening chickens spinning under the heat lamp.
He literally turns to Maya and calls buying one financial planning.
And honestly, he's not entirely wrong.
If you were going to grab one, the experts at PureWow have 5 secrets for picking the absolute best bird.
What's the first one?
Number 1, grab the heaviest one you can find. Because they sit under those intense heat lamps all day, the heavier the bird, the more natural juices it still retains.
Makes sense.
Number 2, look for plump, taut skin. If the skin looks shriveled and wrinkled, the meat inside is totally dried out.
Good tip.
Number 3, avoid the fancy lemon, herb, or barbecue flavors. They often use artificial ingredients or heavy sodium that will clash if you try to shred the chicken and use it in a soup or tacos later in the week. Stick to the classic savory.
Keep it versatile.
Number 4, don't just stick to the massive chains. Check out your local, international, or corner grocery stores for incredible, authentic flavor profiles. And number 5, ensure they are made daily. Look for stores where you can physically see the raw chickens going onto the spits behind the counter.
The economics behind these chickens are absolutely staggering, particularly when we look at the Costco model.
Costco has famously sold their rotisserie chicken for exactly $4.99 since 2009. Think about the inflation we've seen since 2009.
It's massive. To maintain that impossible price point, Costco went so far as to build their own massive dedicated chicken processing plant in Nebraska just to control the supply chain.
Wait, so they vertically integrated an entire farming and processing infrastructure just to keep a chicken at $5?
Yes. And here is the kicker. Even with that massive plant, the chicken is still a loss leader. Costco intentionally loses tens of millions of dollars every single year selling these chickens.
They are intentionally losing millions every year. How on earth is that sustainable?
Because the entire strategy is just to draw you deep into the back of their massive warehouse.
Yeah.
They know that to get to that cheap chicken, you have to walk past the electronics, the clothing, the home goods.
Oh, wow.
They are betting millions of dollars that you will almost certainly buy a high-margin item, like a new flat-screen TV or a bulk pack of paper towels on your way out. The chicken is just the bait.
That is deeply manipulative, but also incredibly brilliant. However, there's also a surprisingly philosophical side to this whole chicken phenomenon.
There is.
I was reading this fascinating essay from our sources that looks at that exact same $4.99 Costco chicken and sees something profoundly spiritual in it.
If we connect this engineered retail trick to the bigger picture of human experience, the essayist argues that this simple rotisserie chicken represents what they call Eucharistic imagination.
That's a heavy term for poultry. What does that actually mean?
It's a theological concept about finding grace in the ordinary, everyday elements of life. Think about it. A rotisserie chicken is not an elite luxury item. It is a shared communal meal. The essayist argues that in a world where we are constantly squeezed by inflation, shrinkflation, and companies trying to maximize their profit margins on every single interaction, a reliably $5 chicken signals something vital.
It signals sufficiency over maximum profit.
Exactly. It is a choice by a retailer, even if it's a strategic one, not to charge the absolute maximum that the desperate market will bear.
It's wild to think about a grocery store chicken operating as an act of grace in a capitalist system.
It is, and we have to be careful to hold the tension of this reality. True to form, we have to look at both sides. We aren't declaring a big box store to be a saint.
Because there's a flip side to that cheap price.
The author of the essay fully acknowledges that we still have to critically confront the uncomfortable realities behind that $5 price tag. As an impartial look at the source material, we have to note there are real tensions regarding corporate capitalism, the environmental impact of industrial farming, and serious concerns about animal welfare in those massive processing plants.
We can't ignore those elements.
But the author argues that in a modern economic landscape that often feels deeply adversarial and isolating a reliably cheap, warm meal functions symbolically, it operates as an act of care. A small but tangible provision that allows a family to gather around a table and eat together without financial strain.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's recap this crazy journey we've just been on.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We started in the 1930s watching the invention of the supermarket transform shopping from a tiny counter with a haggling clerk into massive, meticulously engineered layouts. Layouts that were literally deployed as Cold War propaganda to shock people with mountains of food.
We learned how to rewire our brain's neuroplasticity to pave a new highway in the forest of our minds to finally remember those reusable bags.
By stopping immediately to put them back in the car, we learned why we crave the authenticity of Japanese snack boxes in the middle of a sterile aisle.
We learned to tap our eggs like seashells to listen for hollow, invisible cracks.
We learned how to spot true, naturally fermented sourdough and dodge the chemically preserved sourdough. And we uncovered the wild loss leader economics and the surprising spiritual grace of a $4.99 rotisserie chicken.
The modern grocery store is an absolute marvel of human ingenuity, behavioral psychology, and global logistics, all hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. And armed with all of this knowledge, your next grocery run is not just going to be another tedious Sunday errand. It is going to be an informed navigation. You are going to see the science, the history, and the psychology playing out in every single aisle on every single shelf.
And I'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. Next time you walk through those automatic sliding doors, grab a shopping cart and look down those perfectly organized aisles. Ask yourself, are you the one making your shopping choices today, or is a century-old retail experiment combined with modern predictive data making them for you?